This one is really cool. It was recorded while me and Loomis were on the road in my truck travelling southeast Queensland. The last couple of episodes, it's almost like we've gone back in time and the audio's gotten bad again. The audio was not great with this one. We were using one of those DJI mics. We didn't have the pair. However, the quality of the conversation is excellent. I love this one. The topics that we cover and the places that we go with it and how we discuss it, and the fact that it's done over an entire day of us being in the field. So after we went to the imprint, after we went to Gympie, and for those that have seen the documentary, the footage that you see in that documentary is literally filmed during this conversation. And for me, that makes it super cool. For those that haven't taken the time to watch the documentary, please do so. I'll put the link in the show notes. The theatrical version is on YouTube now. Please like it, share it, get it around. I think it's excellent. It's such a humbling thing to be a part of, and it's really good. We want to do part 2. So please, if you can give us a hand in sharing it around, send it to everybody you know, I would really appreciate that. As always, UTC 3 episodes are brought to you by getzen.com.au. Working on a promo code for that one. Stay tuned. And also, for those that are in southeast Queensland, go and see the Bearded Hippo in Ipswich to get your beard and your hair taken care of. And if you're in the market for a tattoo, go next door to Market Mafia. I don't have too much more. Look, there's going to be some episodes back to back to back. They are stacking up. Got a little bit going on in the background in my existence. It's still very interesting and crazy times that we're existing in. Don't have too much more. I haven't snipped up Bo's dids yet, so we're just going to use the joiners and get you straight into this show. Again, audio is not the greatest. However, it's also very much passable, and the conversation outweighs any of that. I promise the next ones from here on out will have the professional audio back. Really appreciate everyone's support. I hope you're all well. Look after yourselves. Be cool. And we'll talk soon. Cheers.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Chant It Down. And I'm here with Trippin from Unlocking the Code here in Australia. And we're just doing a country drive and just going to have a little chat about different things in the world. How you doing, Triffin?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's a pleasure to take you around, man, to give you a bit of a Australiana and concept of how big Australia is and can be. Like we were just discussing the rolling plains. So at the moment we're west of Brisbane, travelling to the imprint, and there's rolling hills and mountains as far as we can see. It's a pleasure having you down here, man, and sharing this experience.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really stoked to finally meet you. We've done a lot of shows together and collaborated with some really cool information. And it's what you and I talk about is the most fun out of all the things that I usually talk about. I really like talking about putting together this ancient puzzle, which we're on our way to see an ancient site right now.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about timelines a little bit, and how we're trying to piece together the human timeline, and there's a lot to that. I mean, there's so many layers. We talked about on last night's podcast. There's so many epochs and stuff, but I want, and I think one thing that we might be able to draw a line in our timeline is the ancient megaliths and the furthering of time from then on, because every culture that has made or has these in their background always attributed to gods or beings or something that was not them. So there we can kind of make the distinction that by the time these cultures found these places, they were no longer they had no longer the knowledge to make these megaliths. Yeah.
Well, I think with the timeline stuff, we need to take a couple of things into consideration. Do we believe the timeline that we are told? Because I think there's, as far as the megalith and the advanced civilization stuff, I think there's two prior to. I think there's prior to 70,000, which is the Sumatran extinction event, the supervolcano, and then there's the Younger Dryas. But there's 55,000 years in between those two events. So if you think about the fact that, here we are driving in a car across Australia, 200 years ago, the main mode of transport in this country was horseback, horse and cart, right? So it's like we advanced, advanced is an interesting question as well. We went from horseback to rocket ships in under 100 years. So what if the human, the Homo sapiens sapiens, given 55,000 odd years to develop? Where does that end? And where do we get to if we don't blow each other up? You know what I mean? I think the other problem with the timeline that we see is that how old is the human? Do you take the U part of footprints that are millions of years old that look like they're hominid footprints? Do you take that? Like, how old are we? Because it's only every turn of the spade changes history,
Yeah, I don't know. I've been stuck on the research of Lloyd Pye for the past few years, and
I'll put a pin in that one as well.
Yeah. Lloyd's 5. Yeah, it's like 7. I don't even know. Yeah. But just the research into it's not really even his research, but he just put strands together. But like mitochondrial Eve, the farthest Homo sapiens sapien goes back in mitochondrial DNA is a little over 200,000 years. So what he did is he put that strand together with the fact that the Sumerian kings list is about 200,000 years back, a little bit more. So is it possible that at least the iteration of Homo sapiens sapiens we know now are about that old, and that what we're looking at before might be a different primitive species, possibly more like Sasquatch? We don't really know, but one of the things that I always come back to is that we're looking at least a civilized human 200,000 years back with Sumeria. And of course, is Sumeria really the oldest civilization on Earth? I mean, we get in this work, a lot of people agree on the fact that they're the oldest writings in the world, and therefore they're telling us this story. But it is echoed through many other civilizations. So is the Sumerians really the beginning of it all? But I don't know. And that's the thing, is that it's really tough to put together this timeline based on these ancient texts. But I don't know. I'll have you take it away. Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. This is the problem, right? Because I then question, okay, so obviously we did our episode on Eridu, and that is the start, right? It's beautiful, man. Look at that.
Yeah.
Not quite a pyramid, that one. That's an old volcano, though. You can see that. Because how do we know? How do they date Eridu? So I think the problem that we have with the timeline in a major capacity is more the fact that do we trust carbon dating? Right?
Yeah.
So the timeline of Eridu, so what, they carbon dated the dirt at the base of the structures? Is that what we're led to believe? I don't know. But then if you start looking into carbon dating, it's not that accurate, right? And so we're measuring carbon. What does catastrophe do to carbon? You know what I mean? How do we know that? How old is Eridu? How old is Babylon? How old are these cities in the desert? And what is hidden under the sand? What's hidden under the dirt? You know, like these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. You know, I mean, mitochondrial DNA, 200,000. If we're winding it back to Sumerian and Eridu, that's the Anunnaki story. So were we modified into Homo sapiens sapien by the Anunnaki 200,000 years ago? But then the other question I've got, you know, we need to take the Baraka skulls, the Denisovans, and the Neanderthals. Yeah. We need to take these things into account. The Hobbit people that they found in Bali in Indonesia. right? We need to take these things into account. And these are questions we need to ask ourselves about how many hominids there were, how advanced were these hominids, were they mound builders, man? You know, who was the mound builder? Like, oh yeah, sure, we talk about megalithic stuff, but there's millions and thousands of millions of tons of dirt being moved around the world to build these mounds.
Yeah.
How did they do that? Was that Homo sapiens sapien, or was it somebody else? We don't actually know. This is with the timeline stuff, I think we're looking at multi-layered. I wonder whether the megalithic stuff is multi-layered, whether the mound building's multi-layered. What was built on top of what? You know what I mean? Like what? Because I'm pretty sure some of the pyramids in South America, we were talking a bit about this last night, they're like Russian nesting dolls. You know what I mean? There's a pyramid on top of pyramid on top of pyramid. Who built the first one? It's a good question.
Yeah, and then like we have to think too, like we're all these people, all these different iterations of humans around at the same time. We have not only the giants, we have the little people. I mean, and that's not just leprechauns. You can go into Polynesian culture with that, and quite a few others as well. And then who were the elongated skull people? I mean, Brian Forrester dated one of those skulls back to 2,000 years. Not that long ago, they were around regular Homo sapiens sapiens. And, yeah. And who were these gods? You know, and when did they stop hanging around? And so there's just questions upon questions we don't really know the answers to. I always think in my head, I just go round and around. And the real issue, and it comes back to what we talked about last night as well, is that they don't want us to know this information, so we have to piece it together ourselves because of this cover-up. They don't want us to know. I mean, also you could even go into dragons. And you're like, why are there so many dragons in our mythology? You know, and why are there so many these things that couple across the world that dovetail with each other? It's like we did have some kind of knowledge of this, and it's been just this. It's like it's similar to what happened in the Lord of the Rings story, where at the end there they all the other things except humans sailed off into some other Middle Earth world that it's like they quarantined off the world and made it sanitary just to see what Homo sapiens sapiens would do. And another question I have too, and we can talk about this too, is I've always wondered, okay, so if Homo sapiens sapiens were created by these beings or modified, then were the people before, were they humans? Were they more like indigenous people, like you might see the Aboriginals, Australians, or the Bushmen in the Kalahari in Africa? Were they around, and were they just, because these people never wanted to adapt to civilization. They wanted to continue living just the way they always lived. It's almost like not in their DNA to want to, go off the land and do something different and follow what the white man did or whatever man. So the civilizers. So I wondered before, is their DNA different that wasn't altered? And were they the original humans that were meant to be here, and then people got messed with? There's just so many questions, and I don't know. We don't know the answers, but it's important to put it all out there.
Yeah, well, that's a lot, man. I think, so draw me a dragon if you haven't seen one, dude. And why do all dragons look the same? It doesn't matter where you are across the world. And we need to understand, too, that the term dinosaur didn't exist until the 1900s. Everything was just a dragon. And the dragon is one of those terms that echoes around the world as well. And all dragons look the same. And draw me a dragon if you haven't seen one. And why do all dragons look the same? You know, I actually went into an interesting rabbit hole that I went into quite a few years ago. Is that the story goes that dragons eat fireweed, right? That's what they eat.
Yeah.
And the proper fireweed grows in the Alps, the Swiss Alps. And there was a documentary I watched. It's a long time ago now. It would have been early 2000s. But there's a documentary I watched where they were basically saying that they find burnt out fireweed in the Swiss Alps. right? So like a dragon still exists. And there is stories like that of winged creatures in Papua New Guinea, like pterodactyls, you know, massive bats, you know, like there is stories of this stuff, you know. And, you know, and it's a good question as far as the hominids, right? So if we accept for a second that we did get modified, which, look, the more I look into that, the more I agree with it. And the problem is that when we talk about the fact we were modified, they've actually learned that our DNA is capped, our telomeres are capped, so we can't grow or we can't heal ourselves, and we can't go past 120, right?
Right.
That's how long the meat sack lasts, you know? Like, so it's like we were genetically modified. And no one knows what makes me conscious and what makes you conscious. We still don't know that. Right? I think, you know, we keep saying we don't know, which is true. But I think what people need to understand is that there's a lot of things that a lot of people make assumptions about. Oh, no, we know the answer to that. We don't know the answer to anything, really.
No.
However, we say we know the answer in order to go back to sleep, you know what I mean? In order to adapt back to civilization. You know, go back to Netflix. Don't worry, we've got it. The experts know. Well, they actually don't. You know, Loomis and myself have spent many years researching the expert material, and I don't know what you found, man, with the expert material, especially with the hominid stuff and the megalith stuff and the timeline stuff. It's built on beds of sand. It's not necessarily...
Totally.
It's not necessarily built on anything concrete. You know, it's like you've taken 2 papers and then you've made a book out of 6 pages of writing. And it's like, how did you do that? Like, you've expanded 300 pages out of 2 pages. You've made a lot of assumptions to get to where you are. You know, I think it's fascinating.
And that's where we're at in the world today, I think, too, is that we're in a place where we can ask these questions, and the internet's been a double-edged sword the whole time, because we got all the information in the world, but we got all the control in the world, and we got all, you know, a lot of, you know, good and bad with that. But we're in a place in the world where we can do the research ourselves more easily. And what it comes down to, I always think too, is that archaeology, science, all of these pillars of society, they want a neat, cute little package to throw it all in, so you know that it's already in the bag and we're not looking there. And that's exactly what they want. Right. They want us to be to just go on with life and not wonder these things. And that the Egyptian pyramids were just tombs. Yeah. And that these people carved these things out of copper tools and, you know...
diorite balls,
and pulled Stonehenge together with ropes and logs. You know, don't worry about it. You know, we've got this. We already figured it out for you, so go back to sleep. And there's a great movie on Netflix. Oh, and just vote for president, and you're going to be... You know, you need to worry about that stuff. So that's where the world's at. And, sometimes I wonder too, with my audience, I don't get the feedback enough, but like, do they think it's great when I cover the ancient stuff like this? I think they do, but like, because to me it really matters, because if we don't know where we came from, then how do we know where we're going? It's, you know, it's the saying.
Like I said, well, it's like there's answers in the past that can affect that can help us understand our present, that will affect our future, and that's the reality. Because the other thing is too, if you have a measure of common sense and you have the ability to critical think, there is something desperately wrong with what we're doing. Right? It feels wrong in our souls what's going on.
Yeah.
And we know that. And I think, you know, again, you know, we started last night's show, we finished talking about the fire clubs we can't talk about. And one of the fire clubs we can't talk about, and do you know what, man, I think I didn't mention this last night, we're sort of diverting a little bit, but it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
We we talked about the cognitive dissonance with surrounding the jab and all that sort of stuff. But I think the other cognitive dissonance that people have a real problem with is that COVID revealed that pretty much everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything, is bullshit. It's all a bed of lies. And it has been the whole time, just to manipulate and control us. And I think a lot of people, especially those that don't have that critical thinking aspect to their existence, that's too hard to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, how do you face the fact that everything that you were taught was a lie? The entire society that was built around you is pretty much a lie. And it's a design. And it's, as you say, it's human slavery in a different form. We're just slaves to plastic and to work and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that lends into, don't question. An obedient slave is a good slave. A non-questioning slave is a good slave. And you're not going to serve the system, right? Because we serve the system doesn't serve us, and that's been the way for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if we start questioning the system, we start looking at these mysteries with an objective eye, trying to understand what they truly are, then that then is going to make us question the system, and they can't have us questioning the system because then they don't get their money, or they don't get their power or their control or whatever it's really about. Because I think we talked a little bit about what's the cover-up, right? What's the cover-up of this megalithic stuff? I think this society that once existed was somewhat harmonious around the planet. I think science and spirituality were one. I think, it was Carl Jung that said the fact that science and spirituality are deemed separate does a disservice to them both.
Right.
Because they're not.
Yeah.
But we have to separate it. We have to control the spiritual through religion. I think that, you talk about spirituality is an individual pursuit and religion is crowd control. Right?
It is. Yeah.
Because if you're on a spiritual path, and look, all these terms are very loaded these days, but if you're on a spiritual path, my spiritual path is different to yours. But are we going up the same mountain, Lewis? We're going as we drive up a mountain, actually.
Right.
Are we driving up the same mountain? Yeah, we are, right? Doesn't matter how you got there, doesn't matter how I got there. We're still trying to achieve that oneness, that self, that understanding that maybe we are God, right? Yeah. As opposed to we can never be God, because we are the most powerful creators that ever existed ever.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's a lot of people trying to go up the same mountain, just different channels. We're trying to get into kind of a spiritual attainment because everybody seeks something higher than the system. Although there are a lot of people that don't actually, that are content with science and that.
But is not science a religion now?
Yeah, it is a religion, so it's scientism.
Yeah, scientism.
Yeah, so that's just their religion, man.
Which we saw during COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's such a sterile belief system to me. Just very like clockwork. Everything just so automated. The Big Bang happened, and that life just came out of nowhere, and consciousness just comes from the brain. It's nothing special.
Well, I saw a reel, so it was a comedy reel. It's like some people believe that there's a creator in the sky. Some people believe that everything came from nothing. And which is crazier? I think the fact that everything just exploded out of nothing is a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
But then I heard an interesting interpretation from, some religious connotations. Isn't the first line in the Bible, and then there was light? Is that not everything exploding out of nothing?
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? How do we... Like I said before, the fact that science and spirituality are deemed separate does a disservice to them both.
Yes, yeah. when they could learn from each other. It's just like all the political factions too. They actually could learn from each other a little bit if they married together some of their stuff.
Well, one of the crazy things that I didn't realise, that I've only realised recently, is that physics doesn't take into account the ether.
No. Oh, yeah.
The ether is the thing that joins everything else together.
That's the glue.
That's the glue. Like,
Yeah.
That's the thing that joins everything else together. What do you mean you don't take that into account? That's if we don't take that into account, how? It's no wonder physics has gone nowhere in 50 years. You know, like this is the thing about. I mean, that's probably a big. It's probably a big statement, and I can hear some people going, no, but realistically, the ideas in physics are still there. They're from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. They're not. There's no real new ideas.
Right. Well, it goes back to there's missing perspectives to our whole perspective. There's missing information to fill in the gaps, and society acts like they've done all that, and that we not need to question it because they figured it all out, when they really haven't. I mean, they figured out some pretty extraordinary things. We can do this technology recording on the mic and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's some great things, but there's so much missing. There's just so much missing, and I think that's why people like you and I are not satisfied in just going to work every day and doing the same old thing, because we know there's so much more to this. There's so much more missing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when we were talking back just a bit ago about how COVID times really changed a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people since have turned to Jesus and turned to
There's
religion.
definitely been a spike back into the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there's a couple of different sides to that, okay? So the idea of community, common beliefs, again, if we're going to start talking about people going back to religion, we need to understand that the biblical story is the Egyptian story, is the Sumerian story, is the Greek story, is the Babylonian story. It is the same story in different incarnations. And I think we talk about, you know, basic human rules, treat others how you wish to be treated, all these sorts of things. They are the positive aspects of religion.
They're the selling points.
That's the selling points.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, like, again, there's some brothers I know that'll be listening to this that have found faith in the last few years. And that faith has given them strength.
Yeah.
That's totally cool with me.
Same here.
I think that's a great idea. However, you are God at the same time, right? You need to have that faith and strength within yourself. I think. That's myself personally. That's the harder way to go. Right? But I mean, alright, we're talking about this stuff. Do you believe in God, man?
Yeah, I do. I totally do. I've seen it myself, just through the leadings and guidings of my life and my life pattern and the synchronicities that have come through. I've realized that there's a unique path tailored for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just know that in my own life that path has been set before me, and I'm doing it. And I believe in prayer. I think prayer is a real thing. I've actually seen it, and seen it work. I've seen people do it, and it's worked. There's some great things. When we get into religion, though, it's like, okay, you buy. There's a lot of things that people buy in that without questioning, and that's where I get a little bit. I put on the brakes a little bit with it, because when you're buying, let's say, Christianity, you're buying the Old Testament, which...
Okay, there's the first problem.
Right.
We're buying Christianity. Which Bible are we going with?
Right, oh, that's another thing, too.
Right?
Yeah.
Which one?
Which one? Which version?
Which version are we going with? And if we have to have that conversation, we need to have the fact that the Bible was rewritten by Constantine, you know, during the Roman times. Like, these are things that happened. It's not a question as to whether they happened or not. And it's the doctrination or the indoctrination of religion that I find the problem. And I was saying before about, again, community, faith, prayer. What is meditation if not prayer?
Right.
You know what I mean? Meditation and variations of meditation and intention.
Intention and energy focus.
Energy focus to the universe, to the God source energy, the universal source, whichever way you think about it, right? You know, and you can't leave the goddess source energy out of there as well, right?
Right.
The other problem I have with religion is the destruction and the denial of the sacred feminine.
Yeah.
That's one of my other big problems with it. It's like, you know, without our mums, no one's here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just at the base level, like, the feminine is the portal between this world and the next, but modern religion is very masculine and capital G-O-D orientated. Whereas I think that is out of balance.
Definitely.
Right.
And that goes back to the three Abrahamic religions. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all treat their women like shit.
Exactly.
They all have to wear like veils or some kind of head scarf.
There's a patriarchy within all those three religions that I have an intense problem with because, and let's think about this for a second. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What's going on in Israel right now?
Yeah.
Judaism versus Islam. It's the same book. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same. It is the Abrahamic faith. It is the same story. And we're literally spilling, who knows, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives because our version of the story is the version of the story that is the best version of the story.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And then you have to think what holds those three religions together. The very beginning of the Old Testament.
That's right.
And what is the very beginning? What is Genesis? It's the Sumerian tablets.
It's the Sumerian tablets.
And some other ancient tablets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the Old Testament, it was little G-O-D-S, gods.
Yeah, the Elohims.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we're actually going to analyse it, not only was it G-O-D-S, but the feminine aspect was also honoured in the first version of the Old Testament, or in the Sumerian, right? You talk about Enki and Ninhursag, right?
Yeah.
They're the creators, the mother and the father, not just the father, right?
Right.
I think, and here's a thought that I just had right now. Isn't the overpowering masculine aspect and therefore not having the softer feminine balance, does that not cause the conflict?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The denial of the feminine aspect of these religions and having them being entirely masculine and boys being boys and, you know, everything's a dick measuring contest. That's the reason they're in conflict.
Yeah, well, that would make a lot of sense. You know, it does.
That's not honouring the feminine aspect, right?
Yeah.
So I've got no issue with, you know, people finding, because I think, again, the original story is the Sumerian story.
Yeah.
Which is the story that we both, I wouldn't say believe's a strong word, but are curious about the truths in that story.
Yeah.
Because it does seem to be the story.
I mean, I've done whole shows on it, and it's fascinating. But it's just crazy to think that those religions don't even really know that they're dealing with that Sumerian connection.
No, and I remember. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting. I'll give you an interesting religious story. So when I was working in Papua New Guinea, I was working with an Islamic fellow, and Ramadan was coming up. Now we're in PNG, Papua New Guinea. It is hot. It is 3 degrees off the equator. It is hot, capital H-O-T, and humid.
I know
as well.
I know what that's like.
Well, yeah, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Now, this guy was in charge of what's called the top drive, right? So you've got the big oil rig, and then there's like a motor that controls the drill speed and the drill rate and all that stuff, right? So a pretty important job, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, he was going to enter Ramadan in the heat, which is no food from sun up to sundown. Like that, And he was in control of that top drive. And he did it for 2 days, and he was starting to feel very sick. Of course you are. It's 40 million degrees. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be feeling well.
Yeah.
Not eating properly or drinking enough fluids in those times.
Yeah.
And we'd had many interesting conversations because he used to roll his rug out, and he would, you know. And I'm just a curious guy. I was not going to, you know, I just was interested into his perceptions of his belief system. You know?
Yeah.
And I sat with him, and I'm like, man. I said, so if Allah exists, which is, you know, God in the Islamic faith, right? If Allah exists, would he want you to kill us all so you can starve yourself for Ramadan? Because that's the potential that could happen. If he messed his job up, that top drive fails, the rig explodes.
Yeah.
Right? That's the knock-on effect. And we sat there and we had an in-depth discussion about the fact if Allah exists, can't you honour him when you get home? Because you need to keep us safe here. And I think your job now here is to keep us safe, not to honour that part of the faith. And we sat and we had a very interesting conversation about it.
Was he defensive about it?
To start with, he was.
Yeah.
And then, in the end, he went and got some food. Because he's like, you know what, you're right. I said, if Allah exists and Allah is everywhere, and he knows you're here right now, and your job is to keep this piece of machinery running efficiently, to keep us all working, but also the drill rig running effectively, you can do it when you go home. You can do your penance or whatever it is, however they look at it, when you go home. And he's like, yeah, you are right. And so he didn't do, so Ramadan fell within the month that we were there. He did his own Ramadan when he got home. And I worked with that guy for another 3 months. We had a lot of very interesting religious, philosophical discussions.
Okay.
About Islam and Christianity, but also just spirituality in general. And, you know, I think it's, again, spirituality is an individual path, right? So I think what I probably did there, I was discussing his spirituality, not his religion.
Yeah.
His personal belief and perception.
Yeah.
Right?
We're trying to bring it out of him.
Yeah. And he thanked me later on. He said, when I went home, I did my, you know, whatever it is, 10 days or whatever it is. And he goes, thank you for giving me that perception. That was very valuable.
Yeah.
And I think it's the crowd control aspect. And again, let's think about it, right? I want to continue on this thought process. It's the masculine is the crowd control as well. Because men must control, right? Mm-hmm. You must comply with me. I'm the best. My idea is the best. Everything I do is the best.
Yeah.
It's the male ego, and you would probably say the darkness of the masculine aspect, ego and violence and, you know, anger and rage and control. These are not positive aspects of the man. They can be used positively, but they're very easily negative.
Yeah.
And that is the negative aspects of crowd control, of religion. Crowd control is the same thing.
One and the same, yeah. Well, the thing about all these religions is, in those days, I never have figured this out. They all require to sacrifice a lamb or some living creature that is totally innocent. And I look at the God of love, the God that I know, and that God doesn't want to kill an innocent being for that purpose, doesn't need a sacrifice like that. All that God wants, as far as I know, is you to recognize and align with that source.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and so for me, it's been always a head scratcher on why these religions needed these sacrifices. And then, of course, I had Paul Wallace on my show, and he's was a bishop in the Catholic Church, and then
he's got the Garden of Eden series.
Yeah. I really like that guy, and he talked about how all of it, they had to corral all the evidence of other gods in those days that people paid tributes to and align it into this Yahweh figure only.
Yes.
Because that made it one controllable thing, because they had people giving offerings to other gods,
Yes.
El Shaddam or something like that, and
Well, I mean,
we
you
couldn't
just
have that.
go back to the Sumerian, the Babylonian, the early Roman, the early Greek. You know, you've got Hercules, you've got Persephone, you've got Ares, you've got
Right.
the gods, right? Because, but it's also the control mechanism from the triptych as well when it comes to, you know, capital God God, is that, and this is where you come back to the Masonic symbology that's in a lot of these Gothic churches.
Yeah.
Is that it's not supposed to be Jesus hanging from the cross as the religious symbol. It's you. You are the dark, you are the light, and it's you in the middle. That is the balance that you must maintain and you must understand. That's you that are God. But you can't give that power to the masses, because then we don't have control.
Right.
Because if you, like I say, your God that you know, the God that I've experienced, and the goddess for that matter as well. Like I had a really interesting experience on mushrooms where Mother Earth came and took my little boy away. That was a very, very trippy experience.
Your little boy.
Well, no, like the little version of Triffin,
Oh,
the
okay.
younger version of me. Yeah. Took him away to be healed.
Right.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like if you Mother Nature or Mother Earth, just imagine like the most beautiful matriarchal grandmother. Just imagine whatever that is in your mind, and that's who it was, you know, like just the grandmother energy, the matriarchal energy. Yeah, and she came and took my little boy away to be healed. Because that's what needed to happen for me. You know, that's part of what I needed to do.
The nurturer.
Yes. The nurturer,
Yeah. I just think, like, I have, I don't know. Okay, so I went into a Catholic church in Malta. I just went in there. I just wanted to have a look. It's this huge Gothic cathedral thing, and I'm just, and it honestly.
What's a Gothic church doing on Malta? Just by the way, you know what I mean?
Well, they were. St. Paul came there, and it just became this, like, it's only, you know, right south of
so hang on, here's an
Italy.
Aussieism for Loomis's listeners. So that's Mary Smokes Crack Road or what?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Mary smokes crack.
But no, CK stands for Creek. But yeah, it's Mary Smokes CK.
Yeah.
Or could be, might not be crack.
Well, what ended up happening to Mary, we'll never know.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, isn't that funny? We're talking about religion. And we just
Mary,
drove
Mother
there.
Mary, yeah. Yeah, so I go into this
Mary
giant
Magdalene.
cathedral, and I'm looking at all this imagery of bloody Jesus, creepy pictures of Mother Mary with her eyes rolled to the side.
Yeah.
Just weird stuff. I'm like, no, this, whatever this is nothing that the Jesus figure Jesus wanted at all. I mean, if you listen to what Jesus says, he says you can do all these things and more.
Exactly.
So,
you can do that. It's
I'm surprised they even kept that in the Bible.
I know.
So, but that's the thing. Is like,
And do you think if Jesus was real, my other big problem with religion has been, if Jesus was real, and again, you listen to what he says, he's like, you can do this too, it's all inside you, we are love, blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
He would not want his symbol to be his moment of sacrifice, I don't think.
no, I've always looked at that as like a dark occult.
Yeah, it's dark, man. Like, you know, and some of it's graphic, like he's hanging off the nails and his eyes are rolled back and he's bleeding. It's like, I don't think that's the symbol that he would, if he was real and if you believe the teachings that he did say, remembering that most of those things that he apparently did say were written hundreds of years after his death, right?
Yeah.
However, he was trying to espouse the fact that we are God. We are all sons of God. We are all have the most powerful creator within us all.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would want that moment of suffering to be the symbol that is used. But that's used because, like, he died for our sins and you can never be as pure as him. Well, hang on a minute. Wasn't he a carpenter? I know a few tradies. They like getting on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Didn't he like to have party? You know what I mean?
He
was
did.
just
He
a
turned the
dude.
water to wine.
Yeah, he was just a dude.
He danced with people. He was, you know, he's a free spirit is what he was.
Yeah. But again, what's taken out of that story? We talk about Mary Magdalene. The feminine is taken away from that story.
That's right. It's 12 male disciples.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where is the balance? Because there is nothing, you know, part of what is wrong with everything and part of what makes us feel that. There's a kangaroo for you. It's on the side of the road.
Intestinals.
Yeah. That was a bit more blood. That's the inside of a kangaroo.
Yeah. Well,
we'll see if we can find a live one for you.
yeah.
But again, in our souls, within our core of our beings, we feel that something's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that we are out of balance.
That's right.
And the main thing, if you look across is the lack of understanding the softer feminine side. I mean, the feminine side is the moon and the dark as well, right? So it's not all love and light on the feminine side. Again, as it's like on the right, which is the sun, which is the masculine. Again, not all love and light there either.
Right. Yeah.
But it's about the balance. What I was thinking, I thought I'd share this with you, is one of the epiphanies I had after a psychedelic experience, actually quite a few years ago, was that the eternal struggle is this, Lucas. On one hand, we are so insignificant. We are a drop in the ocean forgot about. That's how insignificant me and you really are.
Yeah.
In the universe, in the grand scheme of things, right? Mm-hmm. We are. But on the other hand, we are the most powerful creator that ever existed ever.
So we're one and nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to exist in that balance. Mm-hmm. Right? Knowing that you are nothing and you know nothing, but also knowing that what lies within you is the God source, is the creator, is, you know, I mean, you know, we're on a car, driving in a car, talking remotely on a microphone, and everything that we have within this vehicle was created by humans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's amazing if you think about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's normal to us, so we sort of zoom out from it a little bit. However, we created it, right? This is it's the dichotomy that we must exist in. But again, this is a nagging thought. It's the lack of feminine. It's the lack of balance and understanding. That's what's wrong.
It is what's wrong. And then here's another thing. I just thought about it, but it's just that, okay, so then you have the feminine movement, you know.
Yes.
And that's out of balance to me, too.
They went too far the other way as well.
Yeah.
Because of the way they were treated, obviously.
Right, yeah. It's like when someone is trying to...
see this?
Yeah.
These aren't campers, man. Most of this stuff is a tent city.
Oh, shit.
Another fight club we can't talk about, guys. We're driving in through Western Queensland. There's a rest stop with showers and toilets, and there's a heap of camper vans and tents there. But I know for a fact that probably 3/4 of those are
people that lost their house.
They can't pay rent because.
Jeez.
And the thing is, most of those people would have a job. They're not homeless.
They're not like bums on drugs.
No. They just rent, you know, to rent that shack out, it's probably $600 a week. Right? If you're making $800 a week and rent is $600, you can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So that's what people are there. And that's the dark secret about all across Australia is there's tent cities everywhere, and that's just a little remote one that I know.
Yeah, it's hitting everywhere. It really is. COVID was the unraveling.
Yeah,
it really was of so many things.
But again, out of balance, right?
Totally out of balance.
Because you know, you think about the capitalistic because we're not no, there is no Western democracy anymore. It's what I like to call, it's hard to say, capital communism, right?
Yeah.
Right? Capitalism and totalitarian, capitalistic, communistic stuff, right? That's the variation.
It's crony capitalism.
Yeah.
It's
capital communism.
Yeah, it's
something like that.
Well, it's an oligarchy. We're really under.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're under. Again, maybe the biggest problem, it always comes back to human slavery, that we think that we need to be governed when we can govern ourselves.
Govern me harder, Daddy.
Yeah, when we can govern ourselves, but we lost that ability to know. Well, a lot of people did, to think that way. They think.
But in order to do that, we're coming back to, you must understand that everything is a balance.
Yeah.
You must understand that within self. I think one of the hardest things and one of the first things you really need to recognize on your spiritual journey as a personal aspect is that most of your fuck-ups are your fuck-ups, man. They're your fault. You did it.
Yeah.
Right? It's your life. Yes, there's situational things we don't have control of that cause trauma, but there's some point in your adult existence where it's like, hang on a minute, yeah, that's probably my fault. Yes, that's my fault. And knowing that and understanding that and not distracting yourself or giving that fault to, like the Catholics, you know what I mean? They party all night and, drink and drugs and all that sort of stuff, and then just go to the, sorry, Father, I sinned again this weekend. I promise I won't do it till next weekend. It's like, the other thing about modern religion as well is God loves you, man. But he needs your money. He's broke. He's
yeah, right.
Yeah. He needs all the gold.
He needs it. Yeah,
he needs it. God needs it, man. And you don't know. God told me that he needs all the gold.
So when I went to church and what do they call Sunday school?
Yeah.
I would ask too many questions.
Yeah, me too, man. I got kicked out of Sunday school.
Did you? Oh shit. Yeah. I would ask, but it was like, then who was? I remember asking. So who did Adam and Eve's children marry? Because I was like, did they marry their brothers and sisters? And they didn't like that I was asking these simple questions. But why not? Why can't I have the answer? Why can't you think about a preacher? Or So there's a lot of problems I have.
Yeah.
With
that's Adam and Eve had two sons, and they created all the other humans.
Yeah.
Just take a minute to think about that. Think about that all you want. Who had all the babies right before Eve had a girl?
Well,
who was sleeping?
We don't know what a woman is anymore. So.
Well, that's right. Who knows what a woman is?
Yeah.
That's right.
Maybe that's how Cain and Abel got. All right.
Anyway. So Cain maybe got pregnant. I don't know. Apparently men can get pregnant.
Well, the thing is, we go back to the Old Testament, the very beginning. Cain gets exiled from the Garden of Eden, or gets exiled because he killed his brother.
Yeah.
So he goes into the world, and it talks about all these other people. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Who are the other people?
Yes.
Who are these people?
Yeah. Were those other people there the whole time?
Yeah.
Did God create those other people as well? Where did they come from?
Right.
But we can't ask questions.
No.
Like I remember asking you about the ark, because that's the story they love to tell kids. It's like, what did the animals eat on the ark? And how big was it if it was all the animals? Because there's lots of animals.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the ark story, all the pictures depict two male lions.
Do they?
Yeah.
I never even noticed that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Think about that one as well. Take all the time you need.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, I'm gonna agree with Ancient Aliens on that one about, and I don't agree with them on everything at all. Just saying.
No,
but
that's how you know it's legit if it's on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's that. But they talk about DNA being on the ark. Now that sounds more correct, right?
Yes.
DNA vials, one of each species. I mean, come on, you're gonna have giraffes or gazelles in there with lions. I mean, how are you gonna keep them from going over the wall? And
that's right, exactly. Yeah. What did they eat?
Yeah, what did they eat?
Yeah, the bodies of dead sinners is what they.
Yeah. But here's the thing that now maybe this turns the conversation a little bit, but
that's okay.
when you look at the time of the flood,
We're 19 minutes away from the imprint anyway. So.
Okay, cool. So when you look at the time of the flood, you're looking at a time when nobody is listening to this Noah figure, or you can call him Ziosudra. I read the Epic of Atrahasis, which is the oldest tale.
And there's multiple epics as well.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
It's all just the Epic of Gilgamesh. No, there is multiple stories.
Yeah. So which one are we choosing from here?
Do you know what we need to do? For a good friend of mine wanted me to do a deep dive on this, and it'd be good fun. The Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh, another pin.
I
don't know how it works to keep track of all these fucking pins. But at least we got them on recording.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We recorded it.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll listen back.
Pin. Yeah.
Because again, we got to bring the Dead Sea Scrolls into the Testaments as well, if that's what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, and that's where they found the Book of Enoch too.
Yes.
So, and that fleshes out a big portion of the Genesis story too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, the Genesis story is the Sumerian story.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, shoot, I lost my train of thought from before, but.
Genesis.
Okay, yeah. So the ark, the ark. So they were in a time when no one was listening to this Noah figure because there's a storm coming, basically.
Yeah,
no one's
that's the
listening.
story, right? Yeah.
Right. Well,
God told me there's something coming, floods coming.
Well, isn't that what's happening now in the world? Like there's something big coming.
Yes.
But everybody wants to go back to sleep.
Yes.
Nobody wants to deal with the last 4 years and think about
the trauma and everything.
The post-traumatic stress they have.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're living in a world now where people aren't seeing what's coming, and that's what I've always said on these podcasts. Is like if anything, I'm here just to tell you what time it is too. Like this is the time we're living in. It's not just time to go watch Netflix. Have fun, do what you want, but just remember what time it is. You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Look, I think because the other side too, and look, you would have experienced this too. You can't spend all day researching the World Economic Forum and all that craziness because it'll twist your mind.
Yeah.
Everything is about balance and understanding. I think we need to honour that, right? And know that that's part of the journey as well.
Yeah.
But you must be aware, but again, I think more and more people are aware as well. I don't think it's as... Because the other thing the system does, Loomis, is makes us feel like we're alone. I don't think that we are.
No, we're not alone, especially now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people woke up really fast too in the last few years.
That's a lot too, though. I think
that's not so good. It has its drawbacks.
Yeah.
As I did the show, I did a show with you about space is fake. I did another show with Flat Earth too. But why I mentioned Flat Earth is just because here you have all these rabbit holes to go down.
Yes.
And along with the whole package comes Flat Earth, and there's just people that say, "Oh, it's part of the package. It's this is what we got to believe." And so we have to have a lot of discernment.
Yes, discernment.
Yeah, true. And I feel like there's a lot of people, and I know people like this. They get into something, and suddenly, because they're a beginner, they think they're an expert.
Yes.
They think they know it all.
Well, actually coming back to the religious thing. The other thing that I have, look, it's okay, but people that are new Christians, they're like, it's all the answers are in the Bible, everything's in the Bible, it's all the answers. No, it's not, okay? Like, I'm sure I haven't read the Bible in a long time, but I have read it.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but I sat there and read it before I decided no, right? Overall, right?
Yeah.
Well, not no, however, no, I'm not being a part of any religious faith in a box, okay? And yes, it is the story. And yes, there is answers within the story.
Sure.
But to pretend it's everything, and a lot of these new Christians are very preachy. That's the problem.
They are.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's great, man. You again, if your faith gives you strength, that's great. However, it's not always the answer, and it's not everything that's within that thing.
That's right. It's such, just like when everybody like becomes a vegetarian or vegan or something, like
Yes.
they think that everybody else needs to be that. And
Yes.
yeah, it's a real problem in society though. So I find this a big problem in this so-called truther community of people.
Yes.
Is that suddenly everyone's an expert and they know it all.
But their idea is the right idea.
Right.
That's what I found, you know. Like I think we were talking about this yesterday. I came into, you know, my passion, the megalith, the ancient advance, the overall understanding, this sort of thing. I came into it with a real rose-coloured glasses. I thought we were just seeking the truth, man. You know, I thought we were just trying to get together and understand this grand mystery. However, you know, I had people steal my research, steal my podcasts, steal the ideas, right? Mm-hmm. You know, there's a show that for like a year I'd release a show and they'd release a show about it directly after it. You know what I mean? It's like, and then it's like I was treated poorly by some people that because I didn't subscribe to they go, no, my idea is the idea. You must believe my idea. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I will take your idea in and I'll add it to all the other ideas, but I don't think we don't know, right?
No, and that's the more you get into all these avenues of rabbit holes, you get to that I don't know phase.
Yeah.
But you have a good idea and you have a lot of knowledge that you've come upon.
But it's your interpretation too, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Like, you know, we obviously agree, but I think again, yes, it's your interpretation, but there does seem to be a pretty major common thread running through it all. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, the conflict aspect of humanity, which again is the masculine aspect, right, must be right. Whereas we all need to understand that no one actually knows, right? And I think it's more weirder and more crazier than I think we can even imagine, Lucas.
I agree. I think it's more nuanced.
Yes.
And there's a real lack of nuance in this in a lot of things right now. And I've noticed that more and more, as especially the newbies into the whole, you know, New World Order research and whatnot. There's a lot of people that are just lacking that nuance, and I just want to. That's why I keep open to and cover such a wide variety of stuff, because I think it all fits, and we need to make room for it all and not be like throwing things out that we are unsure of. I don't know. We have to be careful. Again, discernment.
I think the other thing is as well, and maybe we finish on this thought because we're about to get to the imprint and we might continue this conversation later, is so one of the things that's going into the new studio is a disco mirror ball, right?
Yeah.
And we had this thing called the mirror ball theory at the very start of Unlocking the Code, right? Where I keep saying right. I'm rusty on podcast. Am I joining words? You guys don't need to hear that. But anyway, I'm talking with a podcaster. It's cool.
We don't get to do this.
Yeah,
much,
we don't.
Right?
Yeah, we don't get to do this. However, so the mirror ball theory is this: you start with a big blank ball.
Yeah.
What your purpose must be is to gather those little tiles, those little mirror tiles. Right?
Yeah.
And you need to gather as many little mirror tiles as you can. The good, the bad, the ugly. So I think the other thing that people get into is they look for confirmation bias, right?
Oh yeah.
Whereas if I look into a story, I will look at the side that I don't necessarily agree with as well.
I think it's important.
You have to.
Yeah.
Right? You have to do that. Because again, what do we keep coming back to at the moment? It's balance. You've got to know the way broadly. I think it was Miyamoto Musashi. If to know the way broadly is to see it in all things. So you must have discernment, but you must know thy enemy as well, right? You must know thyself and know what you're against. So you need to understand. You know, because there's also, as much as we're harping on about the negatives of civilization, it's also given us the things and the ability to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
So there's balance within all things, man.
Agreed.
Righto, guys. So we're about another 250 kilometres into our field tripping day. We've been to the imprint, and we're currently coming out of Gympie on the way back to drop Loomis off where he's staying, so we can head home in a couple of days. So, mate, my question is, I've got plenty of things to say, but what was your thoughts on the imprint?
So the imprint was actually really a lot more interesting than actually anything I saw today, because it's some kind of mechanical device or something. It looks mechanical that imprinted, I don't know, from heat. It looks like it melted the stone.
Yeah.
And it left a print there.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, what tool would do that, and why would someone do that? Why would someone do that in nature, right where it is? It's not like it's a construction site, so we're not, you can't think it's like just some tool that we don't really understand what it looks like. There's something happened there that's it's beyond explanation. So to me, it's really interesting because I've never seen anything like it before.
No, it's an anomaly.
Yeah.
And just so people, for Loomis's international listeners, that it's at an indigenous carving ground. There's all these axe grinding and grinding grooves where they would carve their stone Neolithic axes, and it's just a random place to have this imprint. And it definitely looks mechanical.
And you might want to add that you went there with, was it like a professor, or did you say it was a...
No, so how we found it originally was we were visiting the Jinnabara, and we basically paid for a day to spend with the Jinnabara elders.
Yeah.
And that's how we found it.
Okay.
And it was completely at random. Now, we were with the Jinnabara elders who have visited this site countless times on tourists. They take schools there, all of that.
Yeah.
And no one had ever noticed it. And, yeah, we noticed it that day.
And they didn't know what it was.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I asked them straight away. I'm like, do you know anything about this? What is this about? And they're like, I don't know. I've never seen it. They basically said they'd really never seen it before, which is, a bit odd in itself, considering how many times they'd been there. But if you think about it, I mean, we had to clear it off, didn't we? We had to clear the debris off of the sand, all that sort of stuff. It wasn't actually prominent when we went there today. We had to clean it up and clear it off. So, and it's the surrounding stones around it and the fact that they look cut as well. It's definitely some sort of mechanical device, that a stand or a leg, or I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't. That's why we just call it the imprint.
Yeah, it's no shape I've ever seen.
No.
But it looks like it could be something man-made,
yes,
as far as like the tool that made the imprint, but why?
Yeah.
Why make that, and what for, and how recent it is. But what we did today is you took like a mold of it.
A mold of it, yeah.
With a, what's this stuff called?
It's called microsil.
Microsil, okay.
And it's basically used in forensics to take blade imprints and, it's police use it basically. It's a forensic tool. And one of the coders, who's an ex-forensic scientist, could get a hold of some. And yeah, we took an imprint of the imprint. And even that, like, the depth is very uniform, the width is very uniform, and it looks like it was made in a single pass. It's not like, because I mean, if you take the other grinding grooves, you can see where stuff has been dragged through to create that groove in the sandstone,
Yeah.
But not the imprint. It looks like it's been done in one pass, if it was done in one pass. But again, how and why? You know what I mean? It's a mystery.
It's too precise to be something that was repetitively done right there.
Exactly, and it's a perfect right angle.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about it too. It's, and I've said this on my show a few times, however, just for the new listeners who hear this, I did send photos of the imprint and a sample of the sandstone from the area there down to a geologist, and basically he had no idea what caused the imprint. He said that that version of sandstone melts at 2,000 plus degrees Celsius, and the fact he concluded that there's a number of like right angle cuts just near the imprint, and he concluded that yes, they were cut. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah, that's another clue to it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and of course, anybody listening, it's probably hard to visualize this thing, but it will be in the documentary, and of course, you can look at any of Triffin's works. Probably you've done stuff on YouTube, or maybe with it. Or?
Yeah, look, I'll probably with the release of this episode, I might post some photos, good photos that I've taken of it on Instagram. It's one of those things I haven't really shared a massive amount, but as part of UTC3 I do want to start opening that stuff up a lot more, because it's a mystery. It is a genuine piece of art that makes no sense and shouldn't be there. So it's like, we need to get it out there.
Yeah.
That being said, I have sent it to Muhammad Ibrahim, the Egyptologist. I've sent it to you. I've sent it to everybody that I already know. And everybody comes back and says, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that was the most interesting thing. Well, the thing is, we did the Gympie pyramid and polygonal wall.
Yes.
And although that's more famous, and maybe some people listening might be more like, whoa, what was that like? But to be honest, there's not a lot to see there. We did see a polygonal wall in the town of Gympie, and that's my first time. It's definitely in the same format as any of the polygonal walls you'll see in.
Well, cyclopean walls is probably the better way, because it's a bit rougher.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it does reflect the polygonal or cyclopean walls in Italy, in Greece. It's not as big as you would say in, polygonal masonry obviously really is South America.
Yeah.
And somewhat in Egypt a little bit. However, it's pretty rough, but the story is that it was moved there in a Depression era project. And it was either moved from the Gympie Pyramid site, which is what some people believe, or the other end of the story is that the Freemasons had something to do with it. I suppose the interesting thing in Gympie, and I showed Loomis some of that stuff as we were sort of leaving Gympie, there's all these echoes, there's all these weird polygonal masonry echoes. They're not as good as the wall at Surface Hill, but they're just all over Gympie. So it's like, were they trying to emulate the wall at Surface Hill, or was there a mason that existed in Gympie, a couple of hundred years ago, who built all that stuff, and then they tried to emulate it? It's curious.
It is, and then just the fact that why would you go to make these 4, 5, 6-sided stones, strange cuts?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Is it walls from a pyramid? I kind of don't think so, because what pyramid walls are made out of polygonal masonry?
Yeah.
None that I can think of. So then, what is it? Well, it could be from another site there that nobody has any idea. And then of course we went to the actual site where the Gympie Pyramid is supposed to be, but it's been, whatever was there was long ago destroyed.
But the misconception is, though, just to be clear about that, is that Jaki Kundu, the rocky ridge line that the little walls were on, is still there. It's in between a highway and another road, but it is still there.
Yeah.
What it actually looks like is it completely different, and how much would be left after everything else is a different thing, but it is still there.
Yeah, it is still there. Something was there, and there's some good videos about it. But then again, I'm going to cover this eventually in the documentary, in some detail. But anticlimactic to see. There really isn't anything there.
No, it's a curious polygonal masonry wall around the church.
That's
in the top of Gympie.
Yeah.
It has there's definitely a few very interesting stones. It is definitely polygonal or cyclopean in nature. But yeah, it is a bit anticlimactic because there's nothing else to see or say really about it.
Yeah.
Supposedly it came from the pyramid site, or the Masons had something to do with it.
And, well, the tracks have been covered, so it's one of those things that it's hard to know.
It's hard to know, yeah.
It's really hard to know.
But yeah, supposedly there was 2 standing stones at the top of the Gympie Pyramid and a stone circle. I have been, I went to Gympie many times before. The highway went through. I'm going to share some of that footage and photos with Loomis. He can put it on the documentary. However, the imprint's curious, but again, we find ourselves not lost for words, but what else is there to say about it?
Yeah.
There's not much more to say apart from, well, look, I mean, we did take some drone footage of some holes.
That's right.
That we suspect may be constellation. Now, it's, here's a lesson here, guys, and Loomis and I were discussing this. The first time I went there and I saw those holes, I convinced myself that it was nothing. And look, it may still be nothing. I'm open to the fact that it's nothing. However, it's been nagging at me. And especially the 2 groupings that we took photos of seemed a little bit deliberate. And we got good aerial shots of them with the drone, and I'm going to see whether or not they are some sort of star constellation. Which, if they are, could be very curious.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It's always good to cover everything about a place, though. If you really want to, take on some investigations for yourself, you gotta investigate it all, and I'm glad we did. So yeah. So that was kind of the day. That was kind of the day in the field, just trying to find some more answers to this puzzle.
Yeah, we spent a good couple of hours at the imprint, sort of poured over it. I showed you some of the things. Again, we took a lot of footage that I'm sure you'll use in the documentary, and it was interesting. But I mean, we're at the end of a sort of 300 miles or 400-500 k's in Australian terms trip, so we are a little tired. Have a very interesting day in the field, and hey man, thank you very much for making the time to come and see me and joining me and seeing the things that I've seen. It's been very cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for showing it. It's we've done a lot of things together, and now we finally meet in the physical and do some more things. So it's cool. Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, well, that's kind of like a wrap of the day mostly, but I don't know. How do we wrap this one up here? Let's see.
Well, we sort of went many different ways. Again, like we did last night. Yeah. We've crammed a lot of topics into 2 shows, and this one probably being on the road all day is we had a lot of different conversations at the imprint. We probably spent a good 2-3 hours there by the time we got everything done we wanted to get done. And I think the takeaway is that when you're doing field trips, you need to make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. Like, we went to Gympie, we saw the polygonal masonry wall, we drove to see what was left of the rocky ridge. We crossed our T's and dotted our I's. Like, I'm driving to drop you off now, totally satisfied with everything that we did today.
Yeah.
Because we did what we could do.
Yep.
And as far as the imprint is concerned, I'd love to take people there if they want to see it. However, apart from that, there's really no need to go back there. Because I've got all the footage that I need.
Yeah.
It's
it's very mysterious though, and it just adds to the huge line of questions we have about this planet, what's happened on it, and we're not satisfied what they have told us through school. So that's why we search elsewhere, and the answers are. It's much more exciting, and why we do this work is just. I feel like I feel like the truth needs to get out, and That's why I do it. You know,
Somewhere in there is the way that we unlock the code, mate. You know, like that's the thing. And again, it's, you know, before we sort of wrap this one up, we were talking about perspectives and making sure we gather the tiles on the mirror ball. You know, cross your T's, dot your I's.
Yeah.
Make sure you look at every angle so you can be satisfied with what you've seen. And, you know, if you look at things from multiple perspectives, then if you know the way broadly, you can see it in all things. So.
It's just, you know, maybe some of you listening aren't so interested in just this particular subject, but I think you can apply that to everything.
Yes, absolutely. It's
a good metaphor for all.
It's not particularly to do with this subject.
Yeah,
that's a life metaphor.
Right.
Gather your perspectives. Gather the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Be open to, you know, look, I think, again, we just spent a whole day in the field in Queensland and we've just got more questions. we don't have any answers.
But we know all about one area now.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've definitely taken the time to look at that area for sure.
Yeah.
You know, taking an imprint of the imprint was very cool as well. And, you know, then I'll have that for posterity. That's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that's a wrap of this Australia trip for me.
Yeah.
Although I'll be back, and
we got to get you to the Gosford Cliffs, mate. That's where we're going.
Yeah, that'll be a big trip. Yeah. So I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that are mysterious, and really, Australia feels almost like virgin territory as far as exploring this kind of ancient, megalithic, lost ancient cultures. High-tech civilization. I mean, there's probably so much more.
There's still stuff
under the bush, so much more buried under so much here, and we're probably just on the tip of the iceberg. So, yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, till we meet again, and we'll
look. We may do a follow-up episode once we've had a bit of a think and a download of everything and sharing of files and photos.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a bit of a recap, or maybe not. We've put how many pins. I don't know how many pins we've got to do.
Well, we got a lot of things to do now. Yeah.
We've just created another 5 or 7 or 10 episodes or something.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for those eventually.
Yes, and there's my last night's episode and today. And awesome to be back, and thanks very much, man. I really appreciate it, and can't wait for you to come down here, man. We'll have some more fun.
Yep, we will. Okay, we'll talk again soon. Another adventure.
Good on you guys.
All right.
Yes.
Just want to go again?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Go again.
All right. I know you been here before. No surprises, settle the score. I know the darkness deep inside, reckless rage, poison pride. I know the anger, I know the pain, and I know the fear we do not name. And the one who comes to find me when my time is through, I know you, I know you. Wow. I know you. Better.